Support for Headline Humboldt is made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, as the Trump administration continues its rampage through the federal government, Congressman Jared Huffman holds an online town hall meeting this week to address constituent concerns. Meanwhile, the Shine a Light on Palestine film series continues in early March. We'll have Cal Poly Professor Emeritus Pamela Brown and activist Gigi Hyden in to discuss the two films and update us on the ongoing Gaza-related legal action against Congressman Huffman. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. This just in, breaking news. This is not an absolute moral universe. There are daunting complexities involved in virtually every issue of human concern, and that doesn't change with the presidential inauguration every 4 years. There were folks prior to Donald Trump's recent re-election who were aghast at what they believed was complicity by the U.S. government with what they believe is a genocidal war in Gaza by Israel. They've mounted educational campaigns, organized film showings, including the ones we'll talk about tonight, raised relief funds, held demonstrations, and worked tirelessly to make a substantive difference in the world. That issue and those concerns don't vanish because we have a new president, one even more prone to offering Israel a blank check to do what it pleases with the Palestinian people. There's been an emerging narrative that the anti-Gaza war folks were somehow complicit in Trump's election, that their anger toward Kamala Harris dampened turnout. I don't buy that. The Democratic dysfunction this past election was much deeper than that, and I don't believe we as a society can demand people hold their nose and vote for anyone they feel has abandoned their core principles. The facts are that the war in Gaza has been one of the most horrific and deadly events in modern human history, and it's possible to absolutely loathe American support for that atrocity and fight against homegrown injustices. The two are not mutually exclusive. We'll speak with Cal Poly Professor Emeritus Pamela Brown and activist Gigi Hyden shortly about two new films scheduled to show next month in Arcata about the plight of the Palestinians. But first, the news. North Coast Congressman Jared Huffman, along with many of his Democratic colleagues in the U.S. Congress, have been fielding an avalanche of calls and online messages about the impact new President Donald Trump is having on the federal government. Their concerns include mass layoffs of federal workers, the gutting of regulatory agencies, the freezing of federal funds, and the proposed overhaul of Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits, among numerous other issues. Huffman held an online town hall meeting earlier this week to address some of these concerns and assure his constituents that Democrats are prepared to use whatever leverage they have to minimize the damage. He began by reviewing what he sees as Trump's most problematic executive orders.
One of the ones that disturbed me so much was the firing of the 18 independent watchdogs, inspectors general that we count on to root out real waste, fraud, and abuse through the federal government. We have seen, bizarre promises and public statements involving landing on Mars and annexing Greenland and Canada. That can be distracting, but we've also seen things that are truly dangerous and are already causing damage in people's lives, including the illegal freezing of federal funding for vital programs and agencies across much of the government. We know that an unelected billionaire, someone who's not even a valid public official, let alone someone who has cleared security clearances, has been given the keys to government. Elon Musk and his private sector tech bros are doing things that no outside private party should be able to do, including having full access to a lot of our really sensitive personal data, taxpayer data, and more. Thoughtless and cruel mass layoffs at federal agencies are rolling out. I think a lot of that is illegal. It's being challenged in the court, but it's enormously disruptive. And we're seeing in fire country, which I represent a lot of projects that we need that keep us safer are grinding to a halt. We could lose an entire season of fire safety projects because of these political games. And we also know that there are huge changes to foreign policy that are being announced seemingly every day that causes me great concern, including the abandonment of our ally Ukraine, the apparent cozying up of Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin and other dictators. And just this week, the firing of generals, what appears to be a political purge in the military that should be very disturbing to all of us. So that's just really the tip of the iceberg. In the face of all of that, we're going to run out of government funding on March 14th, just a few weeks from now. And so we are careening towards a possible Republican shutdown of the government. That's an important consideration. And then the fact that we just finished the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history, the Southern California fires. We're going to need federal government help, probably one of the bigger disaster relief packages in American history, and that is hanging in the balance as well. This week, there will be a new budget plan announced by congressional Republicans. They say that we're going to be voting on it in the next couple of days, and we should all be on high alert for cuts in all sorts of critical programs, especially Medicaid. And I want you to know that Medicaid, is not just for older people. It's not just for nursing home care, although it's critical for that. But there are tens of thousands of Medicaid recipients all over my district and in every congressional district in America. Often we're talking about people who are disabled, either with severe physical disabilities or developmental disabilities, and of course, folks that are, very vulnerable at the low end of the socioeconomic scale, for whom it is their only health insurance. So cuts to that program would be devastating and would have impacts that are very widespread in our community. We'll keep a close eye on that. And in the face of all of this, tomorrow I will be participating in a Republican hearing at the Natural Resources Committee on, you'll never believe this, space mining. Not even something real right now, but something Elon Musk thinks is cool, thinks he can make some money on. And so my Republican colleagues are going to have a hearing on it. That is where we are, folks.
That is definitely where we are. We'll be right back, though, after the short break.
Key TV is calling for community champions. Want to make a positive impact? Join our Community Advisory Board and help shape the future of your local PBS station, KEET. We're looking for passionate individuals throughout our viewing area, including Crescent City, Willow Creek, Southern Humboldt, and beyond, especially those from diverse backgrounds. Meetings are quarterly and held online. Visit keet.org to learn more and make a difference today.
Ever wonder what happens to your car when you're done with it? Will it be taken care of? What if donating could give you access to more of the television you love? We'll use the proceeds from your donated vehicle to help fund your PBS station and give you access to our most popular member benefit, PBS Passport. With Passport, you can stream a massive collection of drama, mystery, history, music, and art programs. You're going to love it. Complete the easy online donation form today and we'll take care of the rest. And thank you.
Joining us now in studio is Cal Poly Emeritus Professor Pamela Brown and activist Gigi Hyden. Thank you guys for coming in. Before we really get started in the conversation, I was hoping we could take a brief snippet look at the two movies that you guys are going to be showing coming up in March. They are Israelism and Boycott. Let's go ahead and roll those previews, please.
Some American Jews who come here say, we came to Israel and we left from Palestine.
The non-Jewish community does not understand our obsession with Israel.
I went to a Jewish day school.
Summer camp, organized trips to Israel.
You want to go to Israel too? Yeah! We want to go! We want to go!
Israeli soldiers, they're hot, they're awesome, they're strong.
We actually have had quite a few of our former students join the IDF. And these are kids, these are 18, 19-year-olds. Amazing.
I told my parents I don't even need to apply to college. I'm gonna just join the Israeli military.
10% of my graduating class joined the Israeli army.
We were deployed to the West Bank.
I don't think I realized the extent to which what I would come to see on the ground would really shock me and horrify me.
There are a number of examples of how boycotts have been used effectively, where people withhold their money, withhold their labor, withhold their time until things change. And to have a proliferation of bills that are criminalizing or penalizing that is really, really troubling and problematic.
I was just opening my annual contract from the state of Arizona, and I was rather shocked to see this.
In order to get our money, we have to pledge not to boycott Israel.
Like, what does the state of Israel have to do with Texas and elementary school?
Basically, all it says is contractor warrants he does not and will not participate in a boycott of Israel as defined by, and it gives the law number.
Welcome, Pam and Gigi, back again. Those look absolutely fascinating, riveting films. Let's talk a little bit about what you know of them and how they came to be showing in Arcata. Pam, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure.
How do you guys choose which films come to this Shine a Light on Palestine series, and why these two?
Well, that's a good question. We're 4 people, and we just have reviewed a ton of films on the internet, and we made choices as a group. Some of us advocated for some films more than others, but the main thing was really wanting to bring perspectives to the people in our community that aren't easily accessible. And it seems like one way to do that is film, when everything else seems to, letters to the editor, protests, marching, aren't having an impact. Usually, or often, hopefully, films can create a sort of empathy, which then leads to a different understanding.
Yeah, because it tells a narrative that typically we're not hearing and doesn't necessarily come through in the typical ways that we might, like you're saying, protests or those sorts of things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gigi?
You know, I think the reason we landed on Israelism and boycott right now is that some of the feedback we've gotten was that we needed to include more Jewish perspective. And Israelism is very much a film created by Jewish folks and really for Jewish folks. And so we thought it was an important film to bring to the community. And boycott seems really relevant right now. Boycott is part of the BDS movement, which stands for Boycott, Divest, Sanction. This is a long-standing movement with pro-Palestinian activists. This type of action has been going on for, decades in the United States, whether it be for civil rights or, anti-apartheid South Africa, boycott. So we know it's effective. And the film kind of goes into some American laws that have been passed infringing on First Amendment rights to boycott, which is kind of a wild thing that I think most people don't know, that there are actually laws in place in the state of California that keep you from boycotting Israel if you receive government funding.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was in California as well. And that seems like you're basically, in those circumstances, you're choosing to not buy something because of the political moves of whatever it is you're trying to protest. How can they possibly control that? Like, I guess they prevent you from making a public display about it, I guess, is more the effect of the law, but even that seems like an egregious violation of our ability to express ourselves.
They can end a contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, like two of the people here were dependent on their positions. One who works as a speech therapist, and the other one, let's see, where is she here somewhere? Anyway, they had different positions. One ran a newspaper, one was a speech therapist, and so they would have lost their contracts, which means no funding, and they would have lost their jobs, and some did temporarily. Yeah. And the interesting thing, and I didn't know any of this until we studied this film, I think Gigi was aware of it before the film, is that Israel is the country that typically is pointed out where you can't boycott the products from there. And if you do, your funding will be cut. So the question is, why is Israel singled out as a country to boycott products? So that took us to the role of lobbying and AIPAC, a very large and successful Jewish lobby. Well, I should say Zionist lobby, not necessarily Jewish, because there are many Jews who are countering that existence of AIPAC, which is politically powerful. So these laws get passed because they have AIPAC has the access to the funding and the media, and so that becomes the interpretation of everything, and people are left with that. And so these lawsuits, 2 of the people who took them to court won, the other person didn't, and had to find another job. They cut the program.
It seems like this goes back to that conflation that there seems to be, where you can't critique what Israel is doing as a country because by doing so somehow you're dealing in anti-Semitic tropes or whatever, when I don't understand the difference. I mean, you can criticize the American government without being anti-American. Why can't you criticize, I mean, there's a lot of historical intricacies there and complexities. I get it, and there's a lot of history. But at the same time, we all should be able to, at any time, criticize any other government for what they're doing if it's unjust, no matter what their history is, because we're all living in a, sort of a web, and if any bad actors exist in that web, it all goes to,
This is one of the reasons I think Israelism is an important film, because they address how harmful Zionism is for Jews, and how damaging it is to conflate the actions of a government with all people of a religion.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think that's something that isn't addressed very often. We don't talk about it. And that's also the problem with having an ethno-nationalist state, right? When you conflate the state with, with a religion or with an ethnicity, then
what about people who don't fit
state,
in or whatever else? It's like you're, absolutely.
Then it becomes, racialized or what have you. But when you've created the state to be racialized, to be ethno-nationalist, then of course that's going to happen. So, it's sort of a weird feedback loop. And with the film Israelism, it talks about the journey of some American Jews and their realization or their kind of like de-romanticism of Israel, and they're being raised Zionist and very much involved and believing in the ideas of the state of Israel, and then upon visiting, upon spending time, upon seeing with their own eyes the conditions that were being placed on Palestinians, for the supposed benefit of Israelis, they came away with a changed mind and heart,
I think that's interesting and sounds like a captivating message. Now, these 2 films are going to show in March, and we have a flyer that we'll take up later. What are the dates?
March.
There we are. It's right there.
5th,
March. Sorry.
And March 26th.
March 5th and March 26th. There's the flyer. We'll bring it up again so people can make sure to see that. But the proceeds from this are going to go toward help supporting Palestinians on the ground, correct?
That's right.
So let's talk about how that works. I mean, how did you guys figure out how to do this, and where did the idea come from?
So in the fall, we were really donating primarily to organizations like ANERA, which is an organization on the ground helping Palestinians.
Because in the fall, you had done a previous iteration.
We did a film series, 1 film a month for 3 months, yes. And so the proceeds from that went to ANERA. And this time around, we're choosing to do some direct aid to families who are on the ground. And one of the reasons we're opting to do that is because there's been so much access cut from the aid groups. So they're not able to get the supplies in that need to come in. They're not able to work in the way that they were working before. And families still have tangible needs. A bag of flour, last I checked, was around $90 for a 20-pound bag of flour. And people are starving to death still, in particular in the north of Gaza, as they're kind of returning to their homes after the ceasefire. So we wanted to make sure that we can make a direct impact with some families and really help some people to get shelter, food, and the things that they need, So we have connections to families, Palestinians within our organizing group, as well as in the community here, who have family members there in Gaza on the ground. And so we're able to be in touch with them. And it can be quite complex to get funds into Palestine, and typically requires a bank in another country or a stop somewhere else along the way, usually in the Middle East, before it can then be transferred into the Bank of Palestine. So it's not an easy thing to do, but we're blessed to have the connections to be able to do that.
So you guys have had to figure all that out, though. I mean, it sounds like that's a step above and beyond, I think, what most people are doing. So I think you guys would be congratulated for trying to help people and pursue that level of work and dedication. Now, this is 2 films in March, but then there's going to be more coming in April, you mentioned, right?
Yes. Yeah, there'll be one every Wednesday in April.
And some of those you were mentioning are...
Yeah, we've got 2. We're so excited. We're bringing 2 of the Oscar shortlist films, Palestinian films from this year's Oscars. One of them is called From Ground Zero, and the other is called No Other Land, along with a couple of other fantastic films that are newer films.
Yeah.
And we're just really excited because one of those films, No Other Land, has not been able to acquire an American distributor. So it's virtually not being seen anywhere other than in private, small theaters where people are bending over backwards to coordinate with the directors of the film. And so we're really lucky, the support we've had, and Pam has done an amazing job of communicating and getting a hold of these folks and getting these films. So we're really excited.
And Tim at the Minor has been critical. He's super helpful to get everything worked out. And he actually was able to find one of the films that we couldn't access because he had a connection. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to show it. And then one of the other ones is called LYD. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
LID. And that's in collaboration with Campus Community 2. There's a professor there who's bringing the film, and so we'll be able to have one of the directors here for the showing it in the community. And we did this last year too, only that time, boy, it was really an undertaking because we had the directors and or film producers or both here.
Wow.
For each film and conversation afterward. But it went till 10:30, people were pretty worn out.
Yeah.
So this year we're not going to do that except for the one film where we're collaborating with Campus.
Yeah.
And that also is a recent film, 2024.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you guys about is that there has been a lot of, and I mentioned it in the beginning, this idea that people kind of think if you're anti the Gaza war, then somehow you are complicit in getting Trump elected. And beyond that, there's also just the social cost of going against Israel. You guys face some personal opposition at times because of this political stance. Just wondered if you guys wanted an opportunity to talk about that and what that felt like and how you managed to keep going in this conversation even in the face of that kind of enmity.
I'll take it first and then hand it over to you. One of the things I want to just make really clear, which maybe the viewers are aware of, is the Jewish communities in this country, around the world, and in Israel are very much in opposition to what is going on in Gaza. And they have been from the beginning, and they're protesting and doing media reviews. They're the same things we've been doing all across the country. And it's those Jewish members of societies that are feeling the backlash of that. They're called all kinds of names. And this is documented. And so it's not just people who aren't Jewish, it's the Jewish community has really stepped up. But that doesn't happen everywhere. So I don't know how I get through this. Some days I just feel like I'm hitting a brick wall and the hostility that's there. And we're a little group, we don't have much power, we have no funding. And so we can't compete with that sort of, and the numbers of people who are now speaking out from the Zionist community here. I don't know.
Before I get to you, I wanted to play a comment from Jared Huffman when we had a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of made some of those insinuations, and I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to respond to that. So if we could play that, please.
I hope there's not misplaced passion. I have spent a lot of the past year, I'm going to just be a little provocative and give an example of the ceasefire activists. They have been coming at me hard because they think I should absolutely go all out in blocking all funding to Israel, and they're not satisfied that I've been pushing my disagreements with Netanyahu and with Israeli policy in ways that are different than what they want. And they think fighting with me about it and suing me about it and doing all these things is productive. It makes them feel better because we're all appalled by the tragedy that has unfolded in Gaza. I would suggest that's been pretty highly misplaced energy and activism because, you know, while we fought with each other about that, and while the Democratic Party, you know, was undermined pretty significantly in the last election by that internal fight, by people saying, oh, to hell with, you know, the Harris-Biden folks, they didn't do enough for us. We're going to, you know, sit on the couch and sit this one out and not support them. Well, congratulations. You know, you just got a Trump administration that just called on 2 million Palestinians to be forcibly removed from Gaza to Egypt and Jordan, and basically greenlighting Israeli annexation of the West Bank and everything else.
So I know that was, there's only a little bit of time left, but did you want to take a crack at responding to that?
Well, I personally think it's a wild take to place the responsibility on folks who didn't feel represented by the Democratic candidate for Trump's win, when the Democrats have now three times, arguably, even with Joe Biden, put up a candidate who was moderate to right. You know, Pamela was running on fracking contracts, being tough on the border, and unwavering support of Israel. And I think the Democrats are delusional if they don't understand that they're not speaking to their base. And so taking a little responsibility for their own losses, if they hope to be a relevant party in the future, would be really helpful for Jared Huffman and the rest of the Democratic establishment. You know, nobody's happy about a Trump presidency who is on the left, but to say that we shouldn't prioritize a stand against genocide is, frankly, it's embarrassing, it's shameful, and it's exactly the kind of detachment from reality that got us to the moment that we are right now.
Okay, that was well said. We're out of time. Let's throw up that poster again so people can know when they can go to the showing. They are... There it is again. It's March 5th and March 25th. 26th, I'm sorry. So come on out and enjoy these films and help support the Palestinians and support the activists who have done so much to try and support those folks. Stay tuned, stay informed.